So, welcome everyone. Welcome to this exciting panel, AI at Scale from Proof to Profit with Agentic AI. Companies are experimenting with Agentic AI. However, not many are able to convert those experiments, those pilots, into valuable enterprise scale projects and driving that ROI. We have got exciting speakers for you for this evening. We have got Asif, Asif, um, Asif Jalil Misra. You are the CEO and founder of CX AI, and you have got many years of experience in the space. You are in that intersection of AI and leadership. You work with companies. Maybe you can tell us a few words about your company and yourself.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Elena. Once again, Asif Mirza, CEO and a founder of CXAI. We are in a contact center customer experience industry for gonna feel old, the last 18 years, since 2000, almost 2006. And we our main infrastructure, we are in the business of customer experience. Every interaction, complete customer cycle, end to end. But last 5, 6 years, our strictly focus is towards AI, automation, and digital transformation. But our core belief has always been put people first. A lot of time we've seen with Fortune 500 companies in North America, where we do implementing digital transformation automations, but we were not putting people first, and most of those projects has failed. And of course, we're going to get into a bit more into it. But once again, thank you so much having
Thank
me,
you.
Elena.
Thank you. How about we go to Paul? Paul is Paul Javadi is from Thinkforces. I believe you are a co-founder, an MBA, a CPA. Also, you tend to work in the space of AI, and your expertise is in that digital transformation, marketing, and that go-to-market strategy. As a partner and senior advisor, Thinkforces Advisory Group, we are extremely excited to have you here. And if you could share a couple of words about your company and what
Sure.
you...
I know you covered it, so I don't have to cover that much. But my name is Paul Javadi. As Elena mentioned, I'm a co-founder of Thinkforces Advisory Group. We started Thinkforces Advisory Group 2 years ago with my partner Mike Floyd, which is actually on the call, and we saw a really opportunity for type of advisory on go-to-market strategy and digital transformation. So a little background on myself: I have 20 years experience in financial services, working with the CIBC, Scotiabank, and technology company, including Roger Communication, focusing on digital transformation and go-to-market strategy. And what we do, we provide, as Elena mentioned, the focus is on digital transformation and CX. So, Ashif, I think we cross paths a little bit on that cross pollination, but our focus is more on providing those type of advisory service across U.S. and Canada. And we are a partner with Data IQ, one of the largest data provider of AI, and also we have a partnership with Medallia, which is offer AI and CX customer experience. And in terms of our services, beside digital transformation and go-to-market strategy, we do have a partnership across Canada and US, which is on data security, cybersecurity, risk governance, and also go-to-market and branding. So this is a little bit of overview of our Thinkforces Advisory Group.
I think we're going to go to Nareen Sayed. You are an expert and you were with IBM Consulting, but now you're with Infotech Group, and you work with executives around AI. You tend to be an executive advisor. You tend to work with the C-suite and helping professionals across different industries. I would say primarily financial services. Am I right?
Yeah. Financial services and professional services. Thanks for having me, Elena and team. Um, as you mentioned, kind of spent 20 plus years in the industry helping customers through initially through data center modernization when they started going to the cloud, then moved into the app modernization era, especially around when, folks started making their apps more modular, Kubernetes, with, containers and all of that. And then slowly wedged my way into big data, open source ecosystem. And then from there on, AI has been along, but now I specialize a little bit in data and AI as well, but still actually work with CIOs, as you mentioned, across a variety of customers, mostly in the financial services and professional services industries, focused on helping their teams from a day-to-day perspective. So Infotech has researchers, analysts, frameworks, guidance, operational guidance on how to kind of get your day-to-day done as a team collectively with best practices and accelerate the things that you have to do, not order only to like maintain in your IT infrastructure, but then to bring forward the innovation, the Gen AI, Agentic AI, allow experimentation, and most importantly, do it in a business aligned way. So that's what we do at a day-to-day basis.
Thank you. We are happy to have you join this evening. And now we go to Sumit. Sumit Bhatia, you were with Sun Life, and you are a senior, I think you were a senior director and head of data strategy, right? Enablement, and you tend to be at that engineering side of things with AI, with data, very data-driven decision making and support. Also, lots of expertise in the financial industry space. And from our last conversation, I know that you tend to work with AI. You're building agents, lots of applications. Um,
Yeah, no, thank you, Lena, and thanks everyone for having me. Sumit Bhatia, I've pretty much spent my career in the data and AI space. Like Alina mentioned, my last role was with Sun Life. I actually just wrapped up last week, and my most recent role was around leading AI transformation for the corporate finance function. I start a new role next week as the head of data and AI engineering for one of the big five banks here in Toronto. So more to come on that next week. In parallel, I also serve as an AI advisor for a few private equity firms that I've been working with the past 2 years, namely with Apollo and KKR, really working across their portfolio firms, helping deploy AI agents from a value creation perspective. And finally, I am working on a startup of my own, building AI products that cater to private equity firms. So pleased to be here.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So the reason why we are here this evening, what what is it that we can do inside organizations to make sure that we actually do go from those POCs, those experiments, to scale and to that value? So I'm gonna start this panel with a question: what is this maybe single biggest reason organizations fail to move from AI pilots to scaled revenue generating systems? And we have seen those reports saying that majority of companies are just not driving that value.
Sure, I can get kickstarted on that one. Hey, I come from financial services industry, so I work with the insurance companies, and I think one of the things that you see, which I see, like lack of the business ownership when you start and having a clear strategy. And I know that when we work with the clients in across financial services, they usually see AI sit in the lab, right? And one of my concern, which is issues are, usually you need to make sure those operating models are working, right? And you have make sure that it fails because it's not owned by business, right? So there is no, I mean, Sunny knows about this. I work with Empire Life, Sun Life. We all seen this before. You see all the organization, hey, want to try to launch this shiny object AI, but there is not implementation across the board. And that's where you see the failures comes in the workflow, and there's not tying to the revenue. But happy if anybody else to jump. And this is my observation, but you know what? If everybody wants to jump on this,
Yeah, Paul, I would echo that. I would say, I was going to say it's like missing AI strategy. A lot of times I hear the C-suite that I speak to is our board wants to do AI, which is
Yeah.
the right thing. A board is providing visionary, guidance. They know that it's important to be done or you're going to be left out of market. But there's sort of that second level question. Okay, well, we should do AI. It should provide business value. And where and how should we do AI? It's not just, and absolutely there's room and place for a sandbox and experimentation, but how do you strategically and very intentionally go after bringing AI to your business rather than we've all got to just do it? And then it's a checkbox. And at the end of the year, you could say we all did it, but did it really provide value? And that's where the ROI breaks down really fast.
Absolutely.
I'll I'll just add to that flavor if I may completely agree. I think it's been very interesting, right? If you think about how AI started and the reason why everyone thinks about it being a hype is around the fact that both started to pressure everyone to do AI. And then every time that somebody tried to do AI, like Noreen and Paul said, it was being done in silos, whether it
Hmm.
was the center of excellence, whether it was AI labs, but it was very disconnected. It was in a contained environment, so nobody really had to worry about data quality, data readiness. Nobody had to worry about integrating it into existing workflows. So everything sounded great. And then when the time came to bring it into production, the rates dropped. And that's why we see these stats around like 70 or 90% of the pilots don't see production is because integrating it into existing workflows requires strong governance, requires strong data readiness, requires human context. We all
Hmm.
think about data context as the key layer, but then we forget about the human context aspect of it. And an example I give all the time is when you talk about a simple example and asking a dashboard around what are my top 10 customers, depending on if it's a human person building on a dashboard, they know if you're talking to a marketing team, it's the top 10 by revenue. But if you talk to someone else, they know the different appropriate context. AI is not going to differentiate that. So that's where that context becomes even more critical. And that's why we started seeing not a lot of things going into production because nobody prepared us for all of those pieces. So just my take around the value piece of it and why we see the challenges around it.
I just want to add something over here, Sumit. I think it's a very good point. Going from a pilot to an actual implementation to life is very different.
Hmm.
Because when the demos are done, it's done in a cycles, and then once you're getting into a life, and I think one of the biggest thing what I miss, what I've seen actually in a lot of Fortune 500,000 companies is working in silos. Each department, you know what, they own their own department. They want to, look at a sort of a P&Ls and ROI and so on. But sometimes they want to implement AI, try to fixing a small problem with one of the largest capital investment, and the ROI is going to be worse. So when it goes to finance, it's like, hold on, you try to fix $1 million problem with a $10 million investment.
Hmm.
You know what? The ROI is going to be next 10 years. Like, where can we see an ROI truly in less than 12 months, less than 24 months? But also, in the other side of it too, is most of those projects we've seen, I don't want to say failed or linger on. It was two factors. You know what? That data readiness was not there. And the
Hmm.
second, the people was actually making an impact or running those departments from the agent side to a supervisor, team leads, and so on, they were never involved in it. They never looked at it till they were about to go live. You know what? Because there was all the, let's call it director advisory and so on. They were like, oh, you know what? We're going to do that. We're going to cut down 20-30% of the workforce and so on. And in the recent that we've seen it, a lot of companies have done that. They're like, okay, we're going to implement this AI in front of our customers, and that's going to reduce our manpower by 30%. In less than 60, 90 days, that CSAT score just dropped. They're like, oh, what are we doing wrong? You know what? That's where they're like, oh, first of all, we don't have enough data to be able to train our AI models. Our LLM is weak. And the way I look at it, AI is nothing but like a newborn baby. You got to train it. You got to mold it. You have to have a guardrails around it, able to ensure it's successful. You know what? Are we able to put like a newborn child in front of a customer, like, go ahead, without a training, with, what, providing enough support, enough training, enough coaching? I think that's what a lot of companies are missing, what able to, instead of putting in front of a customer, especially in our industry, instead of putting in front of our customers, you know what? Let's give enough tools to your workforce first, able to do their job better, efficient. I think that's going to be my take will be, and trust me, I can keep talking about it, but I think just talking back what Paul mentioned, Noreen and Sumit mentioned, I think there could be a couple of elements of sort of a failure side of it, but I think we have to put people first, and add the people who actually make an impact into those teams.
That makes sense. I have got actually experiments that I'm running and putting them into production. And many, yes, I have delivered very strong ROI. We are talking many millions of dollars, very strong impact. But then at the same time, you have got projects where that adoption is just not there because it has to go hand in hand with that change management piece. And many of us are forgetting that you need to not just focus on that good solution and that AI and that great capability that you're introducing, but the employees and the process potentially needs to change. If it is there sitting for you, let's say there is a new chatbot, but let's say nobody knows about it as to what the capabilities are or how do you integrate this into your workflow, then you're going to make an impact. And also, I find many companies are going and purchasing Microsoft Copilot. And now they say, I have AI now in the company. And how come I'm not seeing that huge lift? Well, you might be seeing on the personal efficiency and productivity. But even with that, you need to train your staff to know what to do with it and to maximize the value and that potential. So I bring in this next question is where does agentic AI actually does drive real business value today? In what areas you have seen it produce a great deal of impact and where it's maybe overhyped or maybe some areas we should not be putting agentic AI?
Can start.
Sure.
I think there are two aspects to this, right? And a lot of times I think it's less about every time I think about AI or somebody says where AI can bring value, I'm like, my usual counter question to that is what is the problem you're trying to solve?
Mhm.
We are just trying to solve problems with AI without it being an actual problem that is needed or for which AI is needed, right? So a lot of times I think we've all heard this is AI just needs to be one of the tools in the toolkit, and depending on the nature of the problem, you have to decide whether AI is going to solve it or not. So to answer your question, Alina, where agentic AI has seen value, I've definitely seen it live in individual productivity, specifically as it relates to different functions. And as of this week, I've done it across two private equity firms, across 20 of the portfolio firms, within finance, within HR, within legal, within operations, embedding it directly within their workflows. And that could be simple examples, right? From an HR perspective, doing performance evaluations or doing job descriptions, or from a finance perspective, doing forecasting or doing analysis, understanding the impact of tariffs, for example, on your current exposures and so on. So those are areas where we've seen, or my clients have seen, very tangential value and very quantifiable ROI. I think areas where there have been challenges in quantifying ROI is you start with a very big problem statement and you realize that it is a problem that can be solved with AI, but the organization is not ready for it. What do I mean by the organization is not ready for it is they don't have the right kind of infrastructure. They don't have the right kind of data. They might have dollars, but it's like you have to go through a certain set of steps before you can start seeing the value. So assuming that throwing in $10 million in a problem is not going to help you get $20 million of either cost savings or revenue generation or growth, it really needs to depend on, are you looking at the problem the right way? Have you broken down into a sizable chunk? And is the organization even ready to deliver something with AI? Because if the answer to the third one is no, you're not going to get value out of it. And I think that's where a lot of organizations get stuck. The problems they are articulating are right, they just don't have the capabilities to be able to go get ahead with it.
Yeah, and actually, I echo what Summit mentioned. I think what I see the value with our clients, especially in financial industry, is whereas you, Summit mentioned, those multi-step workflows, right, which is the low risk and create the highest ROI. And to your point, and I love what Summit mentioned, like you don't want to go redesign the whole, strategy or complex calls, right? Judgment calls, right? I mean, that you don't want to pay, spend the $10 million and you get like 1 million in return on it. But I think what I saw the improvement was where, in our world, like CX or underwritings or ops, right? Those are manual works that require a lot of what I call low risk but higher return on value. And if those organization can spend on it and focus on that, I think that's where you get the value on it. And in terms of overhype, right? I mean, it's all about you don't want to start with the anonymous or big strategy or judgment call or complex problem and try to do like your process redesign because that's going to fail, right? That's overhype. Like AI is not designed, and I don't think it's there. Well, maybe get there with all the agents that are coming on down the road, but I don't think it's there yet. But I mean, at the end of the day, you don't want to do a process redesign, and you just want to make sure that you focus on those low risk ones, that which is very, I call it multi-step workflows or heavy involved with the lot of processes in there.
If I may, Elena,
I'm sorry. Go ahead, please.
one perspective I was going to add, I think you kind of mentioned some, Paul and Samit, like the CX scenarios or others, or where it's applicable. Another perspective is, again, it can be successful in many different areas, and anyone can say, yes, I'm running agentic AI and it's successful here. But there's another element of it, which is the controls and guardrails for it need to be adaptive. So agentic AI is adaptive in nature. It doesn't, you know, starting with Gen AI being non-deterministic, that's one. And then on top, you add of an agentic AI that can behave differently, dynamically, change its behavior. So depending on success and calling, like here's an example that works this point in time. What works today can literally not work the next minute, not work tomorrow. So I'd say a huge part of agentic AI working is an always on adaptive control guardrail monitoring. It's no longer a static governance, or we'll meet at a steering committee once a month, take a look at all the lights are on, everything's like literally the controls now need to be dynamic as well. And then at the end of the day, I'd say again what everybody's echoing, it's very much a solutioning decision, right? Whether AI or agentic AI can solve for it is one tool out of many. And back in the day, you'd kind of like, we can go buy an app for it, or we can go to a SaaS provider for it. It was the same problem. Did you want to buy a SaaS app for every single business problem you had? Or, you wanted to sometimes build them, sometimes platform approach, sometimes decide if we'll just do things differently as opposed to buy a technology solution to do it. And that could also be a lot of times you go unravel the business problem and you realize they're just doing it in a way that spreads and 15 people are touching and clicking it, but it could probably be consolidated to a couple of people. Like there's no technology changes, right? The change management aspects as well. So those are a couple of things that they're counter to where agentic AI is working, but interestingly enough, they're surrounding on how to make agentic AI work better if you look at those factors. Sorry, Asif, go ahead. You were saying.
Thank you. Absolutely. Just want to add what Sumit and Paul mentioned earlier. We're talking about a CX side of it. I think agentic AI can be implemented every department, and especially in the back office side of it. There's a repetition task that can be automated, and so on. But you know what? Some of the companies who actually implement on a sort of in a CX side of it, especially putting up agentic AI in front of a customer, and we've seen most of them has failed. So you know what our sort of take will be is always put up a agentic AI and any workflows, automations, and so on, behind the customer. Let your, what most of the tasks which your agents does, either your CX agents, your finance, any department, just you automate their workflow. Start with that. Start with the basic.
Hmm.
I think the most important will be is get a buy-in first. Take a baby steps. A lot of companies, actually two of the companies, in last 6 months, they had to take a step back. They're like, okay, we're going to, apply agentic AI, reduce our workforce by 30%, and so on. And then once they went live, they think a CSAT score, just one of the worst ones in the history of a company. They have to take a step back. They're like, okay, what are we doing wrong? And I think the buy-in was not there from the whole team. And of course, when we talk about the team, they'll, they talk X operation team and so on. But the decision maker was the tier one. And the mid tiers, they're like, sure, let's try it. And then the actual operation team, they're like, I don't think it's going to work out. So I think the most important is take a baby step. Try this is something very small, get a buy-in, and then try to increase the agentic AI and so on. But I think going back into it, the hype side of it, just my take will be is think I think has improved a lot, especially in the last 24 months. I think it still have a long way to go. And I think it's just starting up right now. So putting out the front of a customer is I think would be a bad idea. First get a buy-in within your own team, within every tiers of the department, and then, get ready to put in front of a customer.
Those are excellent points. I actually had a meeting this morning at Microsoft, and we were actually discussing AI for contact centers. And the comment that was made was the AI has definitely improved in the past 12, 24 months. But sometimes the customer does not want to talk to the AI agent. They prefer in many industries to talk to that human employee. And you're right, some companies had to step back and bring back that human interaction. And also we discussed, well, how do you put those guardrails? I have got several agentic AI systems in production, and we tend to put a lot of monitoring on it, a lot of observability. We are doing log analytics. We are trying to see and understand. And it's getting complex because now you're building multi-agent systems. And you're right, they are not deterministic, they are probabilistic. We do give them certain guardrails and instructions, but end of day, they could deviate, right? And I actually tend to run AI agentic boot camps. And it's very, very interesting when every time that I run a cohort, when we go and we build, let's say, an agentic system, and we all are building a system, let's say, with the same instructions, the same parameters, maybe the same tools, even the same large language models attached. What's interesting, we all tend to have slightly different output. We are all running the same type of thing, but you're not going to get exactly the same answer. Even if you go right now and ask your ChatGPT and ask again tomorrow, it's going to generate something a bit different. And that piece, that creativity, that's the unique part of it. But inside enterprises, let's bring it back to this next topic, that it's very difficult to figure out who owns what. Do you have the success of your AI agents? Does it lie with the business? Is who owns the accountability and responsibility? Your AI team, those who came up with the concept. Let's say you do put AI in the contact center, but maybe it doesn't perform as well. So who owns that responsibility, and who carries it, and who is responsible?
Well, the one I saw which were more successful, you definitely don't want a tech guys to be to be owner on that one. So I mean, I think one of the things the business needs to own the outcome. What I mean by that, whoever the business owners are on the top, they should be own the outcome. And the last thing you want, nothing about IT, but trying to run that and trying to be responsible for outcomes. I mean, and I always say the hybrid model, which I see with my clients works, it's all about alignment to your value stream. What I mean by that, you want to make sure that have those central governance in place, right? I mean, that's the most important part to make sure that treat AI not like a product, like a product, not a project, right? I mean, that's the main issues, right? We always go on and say this is a project, and we want to get the true cost on it, and there's no ROI on it. But the true ROI is on when you increase your revenue, and if you could do that, you shouldn't treat AI project as a cost center. I mean, this is a concept that we usually do in accounting. Oh, it's a cost center, cost center, cost center. And we need to get away from that. And here we go, Elena. It's a change management, right? Now we're talking about the whole change management opportunity and how you treat your organization, which is totally different spec. But the one I see been successful with our client, when the business owners actually owns it, that's actually going to make an impact. But I don't know if I see if our Noreen or somebody want to make any comment on it.
Paul, I absolutely agree with it. But you know what? Sometimes it's very hard to get.
I know where you're going.
I do. I do want to choose my word very carefully. It's sometimes very hard to get your point across in a very respectful way, because each department thinks, they own the outcomes, and I think in a very macro level they do. Tech, when they will going to implement a product, agentic AI, any product, I think there will be an outcome. How they will be delivering it. There will be results of it. Finance side of it, okay, have we delivered this project within a finance, within a budget? Great, we've done it. Great, there's outcome for it. So I agree with you. I think whatever you're implementing the agentic AI, they need to own it. They need to live it. They have to have a buy-in. They have to have a beliefs in the product. If not, I think it's just going to be a hype talking about the AI, we're implementing AI, spending the money on something which might not going to work. But I totally agree, sometime, a right department needs to own it. But I think it's going to go back to each department have their own micro outcomes, but it needs to be described. It needs to be written. I think in advance, they need to know what outcome they're looking for. Either it's micro, or across the company. Not only that, I think just taking a step back as a leader of our companies, I think they need to be a part of the ownership of the product. Sometimes the department, the CX, I'm going to talk about our industry specifically. They're like, oh, we're going to own it. We want to make sure it's successful, so on and so on. Great. But when they look at the senior leadership, for them, like you say, oh, it's a cost. I just want to look at the cost of it. Is it really impacting on the cost? Have you reduced 30% of the workforce? Have you reduced it 10%? Have you saved X, 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 X? But I think the outcome needs to be aligned across the board. I think that's what I'm going to leave it at.
I'm going to reply to this with a very controversial statement. And not to disagree with what Paul and Asif mentioned, but really when you think about the future of AI or agents, everybody's starting to wipe code now, and everybody's starting to build their own products. But the tools are going to get more sophisticated. When you think about Claude announcing and even ChatGPT announcing the Excel plugins and the PowerPoint plugins, I have seen lawyers create their GPTs and finance people doing their own analysis and products. I almost foresee a future where, just like when we talk about data products, we're going to see a bunch of AI products, and we're going to have a bunch of agent producers and agent consumers within an organization, wherein each individual might create a agent or a GPT or whatever we want to call it that gets published in a marketplace for reusability purposes that others in the organization can see and subscribe to, almost like how we see it in ChatGPT today or we see it in Claude today, as under the My GPT section, right? So I almost see that as the future. And eventually it is up to the governance, the privacy, the legal, the compliance team, which becomes very critical in terms of setting the guardrails of what allowed, what is certified, what is not certified, what are we allowed to do in the realms of confidentiality and sensitivity of data. So those are going to be key players as we start to think about the operating model. But that's just a future of the workforce I envision.
Elena, I'm gonna bring the two together because I think you're both saying similar and I see both sides of it, which is the yes, the business needs to own the outcome, but sometimes when we say that, all of a sudden that means business builds a separate little team that goes and sits under the business, reports it to the business and says, yeah, we're owning it. No, that's not what we meant. So it's a team effort. They own the outcome. They should help guide and be really, really into the depth of the workflow and requirements, what outcomes and risks they can tolerate from a business impact. There's still enterprise risk and governance that has risk assessment and impact analysis from a regulatory, because a lot of us are in financial services. There's still governance from a data governance. There's technology, and why the solution providers or technology teams, like you mentioned, Samit, I think you're referring to like a good old data catalog or the data mesh where we had offerings or data as a product. Well, now you can have agents as a product, AI, agentic AI as a product. What you built for one business might have a workflow that you can reutilize in your AI ops catalog for another business. The outcomes, the inputs, the outputs change, but maybe the core, 50%, 60% of it is reusable. That's obviously going to give you scale as you start talking about scaling your solutions. You're not going to rebuild it ground up for each team. That's a lot of work. So we all need to kind of have a little bit of a racy and own components. And certain people are certainly responsible, and certain times they're just holding others accountable. And that's the best model. Easier said than done, breaks down really fast, add attrition, people changes, changing leadership, changing priorities, business direction, world events, agility, and the whole thing breaks down really, really fast.
This is an excellent discussion. I wish we had more time, but a key question that always comes up when it comes to agentic AI is this human in the loop. Keeping that human in the loop. Many of us feel and think that we can have that human working with AI agents and we can control what the agentic system is doing, but not always possible, especially when you are talking thousands of decisions that an AI agent could be doing. We might be slowing things down. So the other concept is human on the loop, only reviewing maybe some edge cases or letting the AI system to handle maybe most of it, like 90%, 95%. And truly agentic autonomous systems, it's still a bit rare in the across industries, but that's where we are going. So my question is, where do we keep this human in the loop? And where do you think I know all of you are experts working in the industry. Where do you feel it's going in the next 12 to 18 months?
I can start. I think there are different aspects to look at it. I mean, high risk is definitely area where you don't want anything that's to do in the highly regulated industries, whether it's healthcare, financial services, that might impact people or impact significant data or decisions. I think human in the loop is critical from those perspectives. And I know the regulatory bodies are starting to think about these regulations and what would be expected. So I think that's just going to be critical in terms of attestation of some form, because you have to, at the end of the day, be able to justify the explainability part of AI, which we all know is very hard to do. So having human in the loop kind of helps with that attestation piece. And then there are other pieces where I think that there are agents which are able to do a lot of things autonomously and where humans might not be involved or required, but setting the right kind of thresholds in place to say that if it operates within a certain spectrum and a certain threshold, they are allowed to take their own decisions. Versus if the threshold, if it goes beyond a certain threshold, it requires or triggers a human review. I think I foresee that happening in low risk areas or areas where the impact might not be as significant. But I definitely don't foresee a future where it's going to be completely go AGI, at least in the time being. Primarily because I think I alluded to it earlier regarding the human context of it, which is very critical. And until we get to a point wherein we can embed human principles within how agents think, I don't see a full future where humans won't be involved.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, uh, as Samit mentioned, the last thing you want to start with the AI onto high risk areas, especially in compliance or governance. I mean, that's the last disaster, right? And I think my thing is what I think is all about looking at those tasks which is repeatable workflows, right? When you use a low risk and you can until you trust AI 100%, you should start with the human in the loop. I would, I don't trust them. Maybe I'm controversial now, but I don't think you want to. I want to trust them all 100% and say make sure you go do that. So looking at that, still start with that and make sure that when the trust is proven, then you can introduce AI in there. And I think, uh, and I'd be a little bit commercial. We know all the shifting in the workflow. We see all the big companies like Meta and everybody else that they or Google's of the world that they're trying to reduce workflows, and they say, "Oh, AI can replace them." But I mean, end of the day, Elena, you just have the conversation with the Microsoft, right? At the call center, they're bringing humans back. So I mean, that's where the difference is, right? You need to move where you are not eliminating work, but actually accuracy, constant, and the risk is eliminated, and you can do a measurable outcome, and then in that way you can fully get that automation in there. But I know I started something. I know you guys probably might agree. I know Asif is looking at me, so and Noreen, so maybe just give me your perspective.
Absolutely. I think the human element is the most important. And I think it's always going to be there. Where what we've seen in last 24 months, where there's always a question: is AI or robotics will gonna replace humans? I don't believe that. Um, it's just my opinion, which a lot of people are gonna maybe might be disagree with it. But I think the human element is always going to be there. Alina, you just mentioned earlier in an earlier conversation where we still want to talk to people. I mean, there's a social element. I don't think so that will gonna replace that. I'm gonna talk about myself is, if I'm calling my bank, I want to talk to a person. I just don't want to talk to a machine. It could be most accurate providing me the data, but if a concern or something, I want to speak to a person. I just want that person to calm me down. Tell me as a human that, hey, yes, this is the issue. We're gonna look at it, we're gonna fix it, or this is the way to fix it, for example, and so on. So I think the human element is always going to be there. Yeah, I don't think so. It's going to be at least replacing anytime soon. But at the same time, I think I'm going to be agree with Paul earlier. I think there's a lot can be done without replacing human. We can provide all the tools. I'm going to talk about a CX space, especially the space we are in. I think we can still get a better ROI. Providing the best, the most effective tools to our workforce. We can reduce the tasks they do again and again and again. And especially like one of the use cases I'm going to talk about is looking for the information while they're talking to someone. This is something that used to just bother me for the last 18 years. He's like, why is he taking 2, 3, 4 minutes for the same information? Why is it taking that long? What can we do better? So I think those are the tasks where the agent have to look for the certain information to provide to the customer. you know what, while the customer is asking, that the information can be provided to the agent. So instead of for him to look for the information can be in front of him. So that could reduce his work, reduce the time of the call by 30%, by 40%. Sometimes we've seen it by 50, 60%. And not only that, I think the first call resolution, we've seen an increase by, especially in the last 12 or 18 months, by almost like 60% and so on. So, and of course, there's more to it. I don't want to get into it. You know what, Paul, probably you're going to beat me uh, at it. But also, I'm going to talk about for a second, with Noreen mentioned earlier. I think that the data and the governance is the most important. I don't think so that ever be replaced. And I think there's a human element is always needs to be. There's, as someone, a checker needs to be there. And I think the checker I don't think it could be anyone better than a human.
Elena, I think if I could wrap it up, I know we're kind of getting to end of time. What Samit mentioned around context and sort of Paul, you captured it as well, which is higher the risk, more human involvement. But if I could add one more element is just like we don't want, marching orders on go do AI. We heard it from the board and like now let's just go do some AI without what problem are we solving. I think the same is true. Cost reduction doesn't equate to human replacement. And so I would ask and leave the question for anybody who's working with AI is why does AI have to equate to human replacement? Can we turn that and flip it to where is it going to add capacity? Anytime I talk to teams, they're burdened, they're short staffed, and they always want to hire more people. Well, can we use the agency of agentic AI and AI to add capability, go look at new market segment research that we couldn't, refine personalization to a level that we couldn't with the resources and people we have. I actually don't think we need to cut people at all. And then back to everybody, yes, if you're doing something very repetitive, you're just picking up paper, clicking things, copy and paste, those jobs are going to go away. I hope nobody is doing those types of jobs. So, but anywhere where you're doing non-scripted stuff, providing judgment, context, you're gonna need AI's capability to improve what you do. I was just having a chat with a fellow who's working for a health organization, and one of the things they do is when they get biopsies to triage who to treat in and call in for follow-up appointments, it's a first in, first out system. They want to feed that data into an AI system to better not just take it as first instead, but say, you know what, this is a case for somebody who probably needs more urgent care. Great. We can't do that with the amount of people we have today. And now you have a real AI use case versus let's just replace people. And do we need a person in the loop? You don't even have anybody looking at that. So you're not replacing a person. You are adding AI capabilities and increasing human capabilities there.
This has been an excellent discussion this evening. Now that we are at time, I actually have one final ask from each speaker. If you could share some words with our audience around what we could do to succeed from taking our POCs to production and generating that business value, if you could sum up maybe in a couple sentences, that would be excellent.
Maybe I'll leave mine because it's what I just said. As you work with AI and take your POCs to production, think about how AI adds value but not replaces people.
Right. And I will add one more to it. Planning. Plan. Don't go and just launch, right? And the last thing you want before planning, and make sure that you tie it to ROI, right? It has to make an impact. And you don't want to waste your time on it. And it's planning.
I'd just say focus on the problem statement. If you can't articulate the problem statement very clearly, then you're not going to get any value out of it anyway, whether you use AI or not. So, yeah.
Just, I think everybody kind of already mentioned it, Paul, Noreen, and Sumit. Planning is the most important, data governance is the most important. But also, I think the human element is the most important. That's never going to go away. I think we have to put people first.
Thank you. I was just going to say, human in the loop. You don't want to
Absolutely.
Absolutely. You can't take them out.
Thank you. thank you everyone for joining us this evening and for a very valuable discussion. I would like to thank our speakers, Paul Javadi, Thinkforces Group, Sumit Bhatia, thank you, Asif Mirza, CXAI, wonderful to have you here, and Noreen Sayed from Infotech. Excellent discussion this evening, and I want to invite everyone to follow AI Future Leaders. You can find us online at aifutureleaders.com. We have got AI education and training, and we are focused on bringing these types of events to the community around education, leadership, and we do believe that to succeed with AI, you need to start with a business transformation and that business strategy that always leads, that should always lead, and then to follow with your AI and agentic strategy. So thank you everyone for joining us this evening and have a good night. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.